Welcome to the RockFit Files. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This week, I've got Jay Croft with me. He's a veteran communicator who helps fitness professionals grow their business. His company, Prime Fit Content, is all about marketing for those clients over 50. And if you happen to be a trainer or someone in the health and fitness industry that is focusing on the second half of life for clients, then he's got some great advice. Stay tuned. In the meantime, follow us on Instagram at Rocky_Snyder. Click the subscribe button and enjoy the show. So I've brought on Jay Croft as my guest this week for the RockFit Files. And Jay is actually one of those individuals kind of behind the scenes in health and fitness, not necessarily being a fitness trainer, but helping trainers try to address the needs of a population 50 and older. And so we got to talking not too long ago because he's got some great ideas for the fitness community. If you're a trainer or the like, maybe a gym owner, and you're looking to encourage people, say 50 and older, to come and utilize your services. But Jay, before we get into all that, I'd love to know your superhero origin story. So how did you come to be with your company known as Prime Fit Content?
Okay, well, hi Rocky. It's nice to see you again. Thanks for having me on your show. I'm very excited to be speaking with you again. The way I came to do this, to create my business, Prime Fit Content, is a couple of things happened at roughly the same time in my life. One, I turned 50 myself. I'm going to be 60 this year, so it's been a few years, and this didn't all happen in an afternoon, but in a pretty concentrated amount of time. I turned 50 and noticed that I had aged out of the primary marketing group for a lot of things, including fitness. And I also was at a point in my career where I needed to find a new way to make a living for the remainder of my work years. I was dissatisfied with what I was doing, which was working in corporate communications at huge multi-billion-dollar international corporations. And I'm just not that guy. And prior to that, I had been a newspaper journalist for 20 years. And that was really my heart and soul. That was my passion, what I wanted to do when I was a kid, and grew up and became a journalist. And then smartphones and the internet came along and killed the newspaper industry. So I had to find a new way to make a living, kind of stumbled into corporate communications, didn't like it, wasn't good at it, and decided at that point, I can't do this for another 15 years. I can't go to a cubicle and slave away over, paperwork for the rest of my life. I want to get back to do something creative and something that's serving some greater good, it's helping people do something. I didn't really know what that would be. Long story short, I decided to focus on fitness, and that was happening at about the same time that I turned 50 and realized nobody wanted my money anymore, which struck me as really ironic because now I finally have some, and nobody wants it. At least that was the sense I got from marketing, right? Because fitness marketing is all about being young and wanting big muscles. And the more you look, that's how it struck me,
Yeah.
which is fine. I used to be young and I used to want big muscles, and things change, we go through different stages in life. So I looked into it and found that the industry is indeed as youth obsessed as it seemed to be. And I thought they're missing an opportunity here, because my friends and my siblings and everybody I know who's a little older than I am, we still are active people, and we're going to remain active people, and we still spend a lot of money on all sorts of things that have to do with fitness. So why don't you want to market to us? And that was the idea for Prime Fit Content. I looked into it and found that there are indeed some gyms and studio owners who want to reach the over 50 market and need help doing it with content. So I provide material for them. And then there's another large group of gym and studio owners who kind of might be persuaded, they understand that there's an opportunity here, but they're not really fully on board yet. Those two groups probably, in my estimation, make up about 40% of the gym owners out there. The other 60% don't care and don't want to know about the economic opportunity that this generation represents. And that's what I'm talking about, is the economic opportunity. I'm not talking about being nice to sweet little old ladies and helping them cross the street because it's a good thing to do. I'm talking about focusing on a really powerful, lucrative, underserved market that can grow your business now and for many, many years in the future. And most gym owners just aren't doing it. So if you're a gym owner, you should be pursuing this market as you, Rocky, have been doing for many years to great success.
Well, so why do you think? I'm curious because you say there's a lot of them that just don't care. Why do you think that
Yeah.
might be?
Well, I think a lot traditionally the gym and just fitness industry has been focused on younger people, and that's going to take some time to broaden out. And we're just still at the beginning stages of that. Because when you look at the bigger pictures, and I don't want to get too macro here and sound too much like an old journalist, but fitness as we know it didn't really exist until the late 70s, early 80s. So if you grew up before then, your only concept of weightlifting or going to the gym or exercising was like maybe Jack LaLanne on TV, or when Arnold Schwarzenegger started getting famous, or on the Olympics every 4 years, you'd see the big East German guys, doing their weightlifting, right? Just in the early 80s is when fitness became sort of a part of the culture and something that normal people do. And by normal people, I mean just the masses of non-athletes, right? So there's still this gap of knowledge gap for older people who don't understand why going to the gym is relevant to their lives. And within the industry, there's still a focus on it being mostly for young men, partly because that's the way it's always been, and partly because I think it's easy. You know this far better than I do. I don't own a gym and I'm not a trainer, but it's obvious that opening a gym that's just a big room full of weights and charging a 25-year-old guy $50 a month to come in there and do whatever he wants, and he comes in and throws weight around and leaves. That's great. Good. That's a business model that's worked for a long time, right? Because it's easy for him. He pays a low price. He gets no customer service. He has no demands on you. He doesn't really need you. He just needs the equipment in the room. And you're happy to take his money and give him no service. But that doesn't really work when you get older, because you have higher expectations. You and I have been around long enough to know that what good service is. And we've been working long enough to have the money to pay for good service. And we want it, we're going to pay for it. So that just all takes a long time to change. I tell you, I still talk to some gym owners or trainers who are thinking about becoming a gym owner. And you say, who do you want to work with? And they'll say professional athletes, elite it might be not professional, but they'll say elite athletes. And I want to say, really? Okay, so you're thinking about maybe opening a little gym in a strip mall in the suburbs somewhere, or not to denigrate any of that, but I'm just saying, you're ready to start your one little business, and you think elite athletes are going to come to you. What the world are you thinking? They're not going to come to you. They've got their setup. They're covered, right? So it just doesn't make a lot of sense. They also think that it's sexier to work with younger people, I guess, because younger people, tend to have what we think of as a society as being sexier bodies. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me economically. I get it why a young guy opening a business wants to have his friends come and work out at his gym, but it doesn't really make sense economically. The opportunity is with older people.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's especially if you're dealing with athletes, you're dealing with seasons, and typically you're dealing with individuals that don't have a firm lifestyle in place, that they are in a state of flux every few years. So you're
Yeah.
always running around chasing the cat's tail, and not really getting to a population that is firmly in place, that knows what they want and has the means in which to do so. So I'm curious, Jay, your background in journalism, where, by the way, what newspaper were you with primarily?
I was with a number of newspapers across the country, literally across the country. I went to college in Denver, and I interned at the Denver newspaper there. And I worked in Anchorage, Alaska for a while. And then I went down to South Florida and worked in Palm Beach County for a long time. And then I ended up here in Atlanta at the Journal-Constitution. And I worked there at the newspaper for 10 or 11 years before, like I said, to my mind, to my heart, the internet killed newspapers. around 2005, 2007, 8,
Hmm.
wherever. You can argue about exactly when, but that's when I knew it was over and decided to leave.
And was it investigative journaling? What was your primary kind of
No,
subject matter?
I was never an investigative journalist. That is a specific skill set, requires a specific set of abilities and talents and desires that I just never particularly shared. I liked the quick hit. I was what's called a daily news reporter, and my beat was the courthouse. So I covered a lot of trials and a lot of murder and horrifying events, but also a lot of lawsuits that were very interesting, and court cases about state regulation, because the county here in Atlanta's the capital of Georgia, so anything regarding state government would be litigated in my courthouse. So I got a really broad range of hard news stories, and I covered them on a day-to-day basis, meaning what happened today, boom, but also with some, I guess, what some people consider investigative, but what an investigative reporter would not, because I would flatter myself to say that this rose to that level. Things that I might spend a couple of months working on to put together more thoughtful, in-depth pieces.
Got it.
Investigative reporting is a really, they might spend a year or two on something and it doesn't get printed because it doesn't pan out, or they follow every lead and it comes up to be something that they decide, well, this isn't really worth bothering the public about, right? They pursue their leads, and that doesn't always pan out. And I just didn't have the constitution for that.
But you took that skill set of yours of writing journal as a
Mhm.
journalist, and now you're creating content for gym owners, trainers, and so on who are looking to help the population that's 50 and older. I'm not going to use the term aging because we're all aging as soon as we come out of the
Right.
womb. So that would be a misnomer, to be honest. We'll just say, and if we're hoping to live into triple digit years, we might say the second half of life, but just
Yeah.
for the sake of it, without putting any subjectivity, it's just for those 50 and older is really where you're targeting. What kind of subjects do you find are the hot topics for such a demographic? What do you enjoy writing about, or what do you get feedback from that says, oh, we want more of that?
Okay. Excellent question. First of all, I don't write about programming, or I don't give exercise advice. I leave that to my clients. My clients are gym owners and studio owners and experts like you. So I'm not going to tell you or your clients what they should be doing in your gym. That's your expertise, right? So if you want to tell them to do sumo squats, I'm not going to come along and tell them to do traditional squats. You know what I mean? That's not what I do. What I do is I focus on the lifestyle benefits of being strong and having endurance and having agility all throughout your life, so that you can live the life that you want to live, whatever that might look like. You and I are pretty physically active, but you don't have to be. As you age, you don't have to. The point of going to the gym is not so you can go to the gym to go to the gym more. The point of going to the gym is so you can have that health to live the life that you want to live, and maintain a high quality of life, and maintain your independence. As we age, we lose muscle tone, muscle mass, which causes frailty and weakness, which causes falls. We also, if we're not lifting weights, we have problems with bone density, particularly women after menopause. So if we fall, we're more likely to have a fracture. These are just basic things in life that I don't think the general population knows about as it relates to exercise. Like I was saying before, we always just thought that going to the gym was for boys who wanted muscles. Well, actually, it's for little old ladies who don't want to fall walking into the kitchen, because it keeps them strong enough to stay upright, keeps their bone density strong enough so they don't break a bone if they do fall. So I found quickly that there are basically 7 topics, 7 reasons why people over 50 want to get fit or stay fit. And those things sometimes have to do with being strong and being sexy and all of that, because we all want to look good. There's nothing wrong with that. But the 7 things that almost every single time I can put it into one of these 7 categories, why someone our age or older wants to get fit or stay fit. And There are things like they want to play with their grandchildren. They want to be active grandparents. They don't want to be the grandma who sits on the couch and can't get up and play, or can't pick the baby up, or you know, go throw the frisbee around, that kind of thing. That's one. Travel is another. Traveling involves a certain amount of physical exertion, just getting through an airport and lugging your bag around and all that. Not to mention the fantasy vacations that we all have. We work for 40 years, we raise our kids for 40 years, and we think someday I'm going to take that dream trip. I'm going to go to that exotic location, or I'm going to go ski in the Swiss Alps, or I'm going to hike that trail in Spain, or whatever it is. So it's grandkids, it's travel, it's your physical health, it's your mental health, your sports. If you have been a golfer your whole life, you're not going to give that up just because you're a certain age. Hobbies is another thing, like gardening and dance. These are things that are really important to people that we don't typically associate with going to the gym. But gardening and dance require strength, body strength, core strength, flexibility, endurance. All these things can be had at the gym. So those are the main reasons why I find that people do it, or have that motivation, have that desire. It's really about your life and having the best life you can have. It's not necessarily because you want to spend all day in the gym. That's really a different mentality, I think.
So how do you make that mental shift of just going to the gym versus using the gym as a vehicle to enjoy the fruits of your labor later in life?
I try to provide content that moves people emotionally with human interest stories that are backed by science and facts. And that's where my background as a journalist comes in. I don't just sit down and say, hey, Bob, you should go to the gym. You'll be happier if you do. I research and write articles about people who go through very common but compelling situations later in life that result in some change. There's almost always a catalyst. And I'm talking about people who are not active, who've gone through the last stages of adulthood, just working and coming home and raising the kids and not taking care of themselves.
Can you give me an example, like someone that comes to mind right now?
Yeah, sure. It's very common. You go to the doctor, and the doctor says, Phil, I've been telling you for years you need to lose weight, and I'm telling you right now you're 6 months away from a fatal heart attack if you don't lose 40 pounds right now. Okay, that will motivate someone. Or that you're pre-diabetic. These are often motivating. Or your grandchild comes over and says, I don't want to play with me, Ma, because she's boring. She won't play with me. That'll break your heart. Those are things that often get people moving. Or it can be other things too. It doesn't have to be heartbreaking or life-threatening. You and your brother-in-law have been playing golf every week for 30 years, and you've been kicking his butt for 30 years, and now suddenly he's edging up on you. That's not going to stand, is it?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to go to the gym and you're going to have a trainer show you that your core strength isn't there, and that your quads are falling apart, and that your glutes have just withered away because you haven't been doing anything with them for 40 years except sitting on them at the office. So there's almost always that catalyst. I tell you, one man I met, it was such a powerful story. He was playing tennis, and he noticed that he was a lifelong amateur tennis player. And he noticed that he couldn't quite reach the corners as easily, couldn't quite get to that shot as easily. And he went to see his doctor, and the doctor said, walk across the room for me. And he did. And the doctor said, you've got Parkinson's. And he said, I do not. You can't tell me I have Parkinson's just by watching me walk 10 steps. And he said, yeah, I can. And yeah, you do. And from then on, he entered into a lot of physical therapy, but also a lot of physical exercise that's designed to mitigate the symptoms of Parkinson's. So there's a lot you can do, and it's never too late. And my job, I believe, is to, like I said, tell these stories that people relate to and have some emotional reaction to, and then understand that, oh, that's why I need to take care of myself. That's why I need to be able to, you know, do some physical activity so that I don't lose the ability to take care of myself.
Yeah, great. Okay. You had to have, I would say, a leap of faith in starting this company and
Hmm.
moving away from the comfort zone of what you knew into an environment that had an uncertain future to it. What what was it? I mean, what was that like? And what made you go, this is the direction that I think I need to head in? Because you could have headed in so many automotive repair, you could have done any number of other elements,
Hmm.
but you chose to help those in regards to health and fitness over 50. What was that?
Well, what got me to decide to venture into entrepreneurship, I would like to tell you it was because I was so brave and visionary and had such confidence in myself.
You can.
However,
You
that is
please
not the
do if you
truth.
want to.
Oh, I could tell you that. Sure, I could make up a whole story about that. The simple truth is I kept getting laid off from these corporate jobs. We grew up thinking that security was in serving a large organization that would always be there for us. I learned the hard way that that is no longer true. I was a part of an industry that we always thought, this, you're as old as I am, that no one ever thought newspapers would go away.
No.
Well, they did, you know. So I was a part of that institution, the fourth estate, we called it, because it was so solid in the world, right? Gone. So then I got a job at a giant corporation, got laid off, got a job at another giant corporation, on and on. And I finally it took 3 times. After the first time, I said I should just be a freelance writer. And I dabbled a little bit and I had a little success. And then the phone rang. Someone offered me another job in corporate communications at another Fortune 500 company. And the money was great. And I said, okay, I'll do it again. So now twice I've taken a job that was offered to me. Very easy. I didn't go looking for them. They called and said, here's a big paycheck that you can have if you just come sit at this cubicle every day. And I did it twice. And after the second time didn't work, I said, okay, I'm going to freelance again. I'll just do that again. Well, it happened again. Literally, it's not that I'm so great. It just happened this way that the phone rang again. And it was another really exciting job with a big paycheck. And I took it. And I said, but this is the last time. 3 strikes, you're out, right? I mean, even I'm not so dense that it takes, I eventually get the message. And so on that one, when that ended, I said, that's it. I'm not putting my fate into the hands of other people or other institutions ever again. So this idea that I was giving up security was not the case. That's what I was led to believe, but it's not what I experienced. And so I said, I don't want this to ever happen to me again. I'm not doing this again. I'll just find my own way. So that's how I made the break into solo entrepreneurship. And how I chose fitness is there's another layer to it. In my one of those 3 rounds of trying to be a freelance writer and going back to corporate America and lacking the courage to finally just do it, right? That's what it was. I was just afraid. Um, During one of those times when I was just getting freelance clients willy-nilly, one of them was for a widget company. And they made, it doesn't matter. I can tell you all about it. It doesn't matter. They made, frankly, what we all would consider widgets, right? In an industry I had never heard of, didn't know anything about, didn't care about, had nothing to offer. I could not tell you anything of value regarding that industry. And yet I got this freelance job and the money was pretty good and the people were nice. And I thought, that's it. I'm not doing this again. This is a waste of time. The only way I can make a sustainable future as a freelance writer is to specialize in some topics. And the only things that I want to write about are, number one, news, because I had been in news for so long. So I called a friend who is at CNN and I said, I'd like a part-time job at CNN. Can I come work for you? And he said, sure. And so I did that. And then I said, I'll be a freelance writer for freelance clients in the entertainment industry because I like movies and TV and popular music, and those industries are huge here in Atlanta. Just about everything is produced here now. friend of mine has a PR agency that services the film industry. So I started doing work for her. And then the third thing, I decided to have three legs to my bar stool, right? CNN, in news, my friend in show business. And the third one was going to be, I said, what do I care about? What do I enjoy doing? What do I want to know about? What do I read about? What do I have a little knowledge about? I'm not an expert, but what do I have some knowledge in? And that was fitness. I've always been a gym goer. I've always been in good shape. I've always enjoyed learning about it and knowing more about it and talking to people about what motivates them to do it. And so that was how I settled on fitness. And again, all this happened right after I turned 50. And so that was what shaped the investigation that I did to find out that it's an underserved community. No one was serving the over 50 market in fitness. And so I saw an opportunity and built my business around that.
Fantastic. And then, so did CNN and the entertainment world start to just dissolve around, or do you still have those legs in your bar stool?
I still have those legs in my bar stool and a couple other, the freelance work has grown somewhat in that I have a handful of really good long-term freelance clients, and some of them are in the fitness industry. So that's nice because I learn from them and I gain context from them, and context both from the work that I do for them. So that's nice. And then the entertainment stuff kind of comes and goes because freelance work does come and go. That's just the nature of it. And I still work for CNN a couple of days a week. Yeah, just I write and edit for the website.
So
And that is sort of my safety net, I guess you could say.
fantastic. All right. Well, it
Yeah.
sounds like you've really broadened your field in places that you've you really enjoy. It's, finding things that you enjoy and then making a living out of it, that is not work at all. But I am curious about this, Jay, is that as I see it, writing is very similar to exercise in the fact that it requires discipline. And there's certain ways in which you go about accomplishing your tasks. So how, like for me, I write a blog every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. And I have that as it's in my calendar, it's in my schedule, and that's just what I do. So there's no question about it. And then my workouts are in my calendar also, like every other day at this time, I'm going to meet this person, right? How does your discipline of writing? I imagine you're writing practically every day, although I hope that you take a day off every now and then, just like anything else. But how does it
Sure.
work in your world? Like how much do you write a day, and what kind of discipline do you surround yourself in order to make that happen?
Oh, excellent questions. Yeah, I write constantly. I work almost every day. I do take a day off, at least one day off a week, because if I don't, I go crazy. Because I love what I do, but you got to have a life, right? You got to take care of yourself. And so when I first started doing this, I was working 8 days a week, and a couple of friends who do not know each other said to me independently, "You're working too much. You're going to burn out. You won't be able to do anything for anybody if you keep going like this. So you need to take a day off a week." And so I schedule that off. I schedule Sundays off now because of that. And that was the best advice anybody ever gave me. So anybody out there listening who wants to be an entrepreneur, yeah, you got to be dedicated and you got to be devoted and you got to work your tail off, but you also have to take care of yourself in the long term. And you still have family and friends and relationships and community, and still got to do the dishes and all those things, right? Um, so the other part answer to that question, Rocky, is kind of difficult to answer exactly because the discipline and the habits and the technique that I employ were all taught to me very early in my life and served me for all those years in newspapers. And now they're just sort of second nature to me. Um, and maybe someday I'll create a new business and teach people how how to research and write. That would be a good entrepreneurial enterprise for me. And if I do that, I'm going to have to really break it down. But the way I cover fitness now, the way I have ideas for my business and for my podcast, is I treat fitness over 50 like I did my beat at the newspaper. And that means that I'm always working it. I'm always talking to somebody. I'm always going to something. I'm always reading something. And many of those things will never see the light of day, but they are necessary. You have to, because we don't know what we don't know, we have to learn things before we can decide that they're not that important or that we're not going to do anything with them, right? So I try to stay as educated and plugged in as possible, and work the beat. And I'll give you an example. When I covered the courthouse, the grand juries met every Tuesday and Friday, and they would hand up their indictments. And I would literally go and read every single indictment. Well, as you might imagine, in Atlanta's courts, that's a ton of indictments all the time. And most of them were not newsworthy, just sort of ordinary crime. But you had to read the 200 of them to get to the one that made you go, oh my gosh, look at this. What is this, right? And it's kind of the same thing with all of this. I talk to people all the time, and I'm reading stuff all the time, and I'm going places all the time so that I can learn. The discipline of writing is just I've got it broken down. On the days I worked for CNN, that was using my old journalism muscles. And the days that I'm doing my own stuff, I'm thinking about who is my audience, and how do I want them to use this material? My audience is the gym and studio owner, but I'm writing for their audience, and that is the ultimate end user, their customers. So I'm writing about fitness, but I'm not writing about the anatomy. I'm not using big words. I'm not using exclusionary language. I want everyone to read this and understand what I'm talking about, so that they are motivated to take better care of themselves, so that they have a good feeling when they read this material. They feel good about the person who sent them the material, which is the gym owner, which again is you. And so they get this, I sell you the material, you put it in your emails and in your Facebooks and on your blogs. People who read it never are aware that I exist. They don't need to be, but they feel good when they read the material, and they feel good about you. And they get to know you and like you and trust you through the material that I'm sending them, which is inspirational but not silly, and which is substantial but not tedious, and which they can relate to but is genuine, and I think that comes from being a newspaper reporter. I can pull your heartstrings if I want to, but generally I just try to stick to the facts, which are so compelling. So compelling. Think about the people you work with, your clients. Don't they have great lives? Aren't they interesting? Don't you enjoy
Good.
hearing from them? Yeah, it's great. It's a great opportunity. It's a great privilege.
And now with your clients, like you say, are the gym owners, but you write toward the members. Do you take requests, I guess, is my question. Like if you've got gym owners that cater exclusively to 50 and older LGBTQ population, or are these the over 50 competitive power lifters in this gym? Do you get those type of studios or facilities where they say, okay, here's our demographics, we only cater to women 50 and older, or we're just a men only, or maybe it's a faith-based where it's the Jewish community center, or you know what I'm saying? Do you ever get that?
I do. Oh, sure, I do. And sometimes I can accommodate them within the broader parameters of all my clients. And sometimes I suggest that I do some custom material for them. So by that, I mean that everything I write needs to be usable by all of my customers who are gym and studio owners all across the country. And so some of them might be in an area, like you said, LGBTQ community. This is Pride Month, right? Well, so a lot of my customers might be really interested in that and want to share some content about their gay members or their LGBTQ members. I'm sorry. I'm old enough to where we used to just say gay, and that covered everybody. And I know that's no longer the case, and I'm gay myself, so I'm covered. I get a free pass if I say something politically incorrect. But a lot of people don't, and I don't mean because they're prejudiced or because they're bad people or because they're anti this or anti that, but it just might not be a factor in their community. So I would love to do something specifically with the gay community or gyms that service them, but I'm not sure. It would have to be something probably custom just for them, because not everybody would want that. Now, the kind of similar to any special interest, because that special interest isn't going to be relevant to all of my subscribers. But within the broader range of fitness over 50 and those 7 reasons that I talked about, I do try to be diverse and representative of all kinds of people. And that includes not just LGBTQ, but also people of color and people who are 50, but also people who are 85, or even older, because they're doing great stuff. People who are in excellent condition, people who are just starting out and are really deconditioned. It's the whole range of things. I love getting story ideas from my clients, my customers. I think of them as sort of as sources. And a lot of them have become friends of mine over the years, and they'll write me an email or call me up and say, hey, I've noticed that, after COVID, I'm still, a lot of my people are thrilled to be back at the gym, but I still haven't heard from some of them. You might want to write about that. Well, that's a good idea. And that's something that everybody can relate to, So I want to know, and they do tell me, and I'm always trying to be in contact with my customers for those ideas. Absolutely.
And of the things that you've written about, of the different angles, shall we say, I'm thinking about the most obscure, because we can think about the most mainstream, playing with your grandkids and so on, and the concerns or aspirations of those over 50 into their 60s and so on. But have you tapped into some things that just they almost like head scratchers and going, oh, light bulb moments, like, oh my gosh, I never thought of tying in fitness, health and fitness with this aspect of life? Are there any of those moments where you're going, oh, son of a gun, yeah, we can tie that in quite nicely? Like you mentioned gardening, right? But
that's a good one.
But are there other ones that you're going, oh, yeah, this is perfect?
Yes. I just met this guy who's into surfing. He lives in California.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. And I thought, what can I do with surfing? No, actually that is a really good example, because what you do with surfing is so specific. And and my challenge as a writer is to make it relevant to people who don't want to surf and don't care about surfing and don't live near an ocean and, whatever. So I don't want to write something that says, hey, if you want to go surfing tomorrow, you need to be doing these exercises, because simply stated, most people will never go surfing, right? But everybody's kind of got a fantasy idea of the surfing lifestyle and, what's it like to do that and live in California or Hawaii, and So if I can connect that to the broader concerns, then that's my challenge. So yeah, gardening is one thing that kind of surprised me, and I think gym owners miss the opportunity to explain that to their prospects. That, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Gardener in the neighborhood, if you want to get your yard in shape this spring, you need to come in and see us all winter so you can really hit it. That's not addressed enough, and I try to do that. Another is ballroom dancing. A friend of mine who's about 10 years older than I am and has always been a little bit overweight, he got into ballroom dancing because he was just bored with the gym, and he'd lose 20 pounds and gain it back, and it's like, forget it, I'm going to be thick, I don't care, but I am going to be active, and I'm going to be graceful, and I'm going to learn to respect my body, and he found that in ballroom dancing. And another thing that might surprise people, I don't know, I wrote about a woman named Diane who lives in Wasilla, Alaska. And Diane's extremely active and does a lot of really fascinating sports. She runs triathlons, and she rides her bike in the winter on those big wide tire bikes, and she's always doing whatever 10K is coming along, and she's about this big around. It's just a delightful person to know and to be around. Diane's husband had a debilitating stroke a few years ago. He eventually died, but what I wrote about was for the 4 or 5 years between his stroke and his death, she was his caregiver. And that prevented her from, it would have prevented her from having the active life that she craves. But the other women on her hockey team, yes, I said the other women on her hockey team in Alaska, rallied around her and supported her and took shifts. They'd come over, and one person would take care of her husband on Monday afternoon so she could go do that. And another would do it on Tuesday morning so she could go do that. And through that loving kindness and support of her friendship group, I was able to write about a lot of really weird fitness things. Women playing hockey, are you kidding me? Riding wide bicycle tires through the snow in Alaska. I would say, what? Flying to Hawaii to do triathlons in your 60s? Are you kidding me? You know, all these things with this undertone of sadness that her husband had been, had to undergo this trauma. So that's one of my favorite stories I've done. And it really doesn't have anything to do with going to the gym and lifting weights, right?
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And you touch upon an area that we find in our studio of clients that come in that is getting greater and greater, and that is caregiver of your significant other or other family member. And I will often say that caregivers are not caretakers. They're often opposed from one another, meaning you are spending your entire day caring for someone else. You're giving the care to somebody, but you're not taking back any for your own. And so if you're going to be of service and benefit to those that are around you, that love and that need your assistance, you're going to need to have fortitude and strength and endurance yourself so that you can be of the most service to everybody else. So that's interesting.
That's
I don't know
right.
if that constitutes in your framework of 7 or if that is slightly outside of those.
Yeah, that's interesting. The idea of being a caregiver falling into another category. I see that a lot. I'm not sure that I wonder where that would fit. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Maybe I need a new category. Thank you. I'll have to think about that. But it's, it's huge for people at this point in life because a lot of us have parents who are still alive but can't take care of themselves, or like Diane, their partner needs care, and that's a really difficult position to be in for countless reasons. And you do have to take care of yourself, but then you feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So for those that want to pursue your writing and want to read a little bit
Yes,
more
sir.
about your articles, aside from providing your clients that are health club owners, do you have a blog post that people could follow or anything like that?
I do. I have a website, primefitcontent.com, and then it's the name of my business, Prime, like the prime of your life, fitcontent.com. I have an ebook there that would be of interest to anyone. I use it to grow my email list among gym owners because it dives into these 7 reasons that I'm talking about that I think gym owners need to be aware of. Why would an old woman want to come to my gym? Well, here's 7 reasons, but I think I wrote it broadly enough that it's of interest to a general reader. And I have some other blog posts on my website that are relevant to non-gym owners. And I think my podcast is pretty interesting often. That's something that you don't have to pay for and is just out there in the ether, and that I hope a lot of people would be interested in, and not just fitness professionals.
And the name of that podcast is?
Optimal Aging. So the business is Prime Fit Content. The site is primefitcontent.com. The website, the blog, the podcast is Optimal Aging. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'll put the links in the description below the podcast, so anybody that is listening or watching can follow you, and who knows, maybe there are some gym owners in the audience right now that would say, "Oh, this is exactly my demographic. This is what I need," and yeah, that would be a wonderful thing. Now, when
It
it
would,
comes
and
to
I would love to hear from them.
yeah, and so just from a business perspective, is this a monthly service? Is it an a la carte? How do you work it within your business to gym owners and studio owners?
It's a monthly subscription. I deliver the content weekly. So it's sort of like subscribing to a magazine, um, except it's just month to month. I offer you can pay in advance in a year and save a few dollars, but basically, if you want to cancel it, you can cancel it at any time. And I send the material out every Tuesday. It's more than you would need for a week's worth of content. I could send it all out in 1 month, but I think that tends to be a little overwhelming. And I also like to be able to react to the news a little bit. You know, if an important person dies in this age group, like Tina Turner's death or something, you know, you don't want to wait 6 months to say this woman that we all knew and loved died. You know, and it's not only was she important to the baby boomers, but she was part of her importance is because she was so physical, right, and known for that. So I like to be more I like to be able to respond to the news when I can. So I send it out weekly, you pay for it monthly, and you can cancel it anytime. And it's designed for those three channels primarily of being your blog, your email newsletters, and Facebook.
Fabulous. Well, it sounds like a great service, Jay, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you and connecting with you. This has been
Yeah.
wonderful, and our time is coming to a close here. So I just want to say
Okay.
thank you for your time, and I really enjoyed this conversation, and hope that the listening audience can tap into the services that you have to offer.
Well, great. Lucky, I enjoyed it too. Thanks for having me. And I would love to hear from anybody out there. So it's been fun.
Definitely. Well, that was a truly enjoyable conversation with Jay. I've found a new friend, and I know that I'm going to stay in touch with him for many years to come. He's got some great insight, information, and experience when it comes to the fitness world. Hope you appreciated the show as much as I did. In the meantime, just check into our archives of former Rockfit File episodes. There's a whole bunch of great guests just like Jay. We'll see you next time.